feel free to kind of bunch up. There's not too much space, but we've got chairs and stools we can sit on, and yeah. Anyway, it's a pleasure to have you all here, and we're really grateful to have Robert here. Robert is, in a sense, coming full circle because he used to be the manager in Watkins. So it's always wonderful to have family back. We are all about a sense of community, and yeah, all of our talks are also freely available on our YouTube channel, as will this talk be today. Robert's gonna talk about his new book, and he's gonna also take questions at the end. So feel free to ask away. Think ahead about what you want to ask, and afterwards he'll be signing books. So yeah, without any further ado, let me once again welcome Robert, who's Robert Howells' new book, The Priory of Sion, and we're actually going to have an article about his book in the next Watkins review. I should mention that the Watkins review, it's now known as the Watkins Review Mind, Body, Spirit magazine, and it's available in W.H. Smith's, which is quite cool as well. So we finally got distribution.
Made into Smith's.
Yeah. So and the next issue, which will be coming out at the end of November, will have also Robert Howell's article in there. So we're grateful for that. All right. Without any further ado, thanks.
Thanks all for coming. Thanks all of you for coming. This is my first book. I'll talk a little bit. I'll talk about. I'll do the talk in two parts, basically. There's a part about me writing, which involves around the chateau and all its mysteries, and then there really is the book and all about it. And it's a story of two badges. I have two badges. You won't be able to see them. There's a small blue one with a white inscription, and there's a tin one. This is the one about Wren and the mystery, and this really was the one about me, because when I was a kid I dug this up in the back garden, and it's this weird little blue medal, and I kept it, and I never knew what it was, and I kind of started writing when I was a teenager. I wrote my dreams, I wrote ideas, I saw things, I just had loads of ideas, but really I first began to write my dreams. I had all these really vivid dreams. And I began turning them into stories as I became a teenager, and I joined a writer's workshop. And I found that I was reading more and more esoteric material, the kind of stuff that Watkins is so good at selling. From the esoteric arts, alchemy, I was could never get my head around astrology, tarot, ghosts, UFOs, all that stuff. I loved it, different religions. And eventually I came across this mystery. There's this place in the south of France called Rennes-le-Château. It's a little village, and about 100 years ago a priest turns up. He's paid £6 a year, and the church is dilapidated. There's only about 30 people living in the town. It's middle of nowhere, and suddenly he starts renovating and he finds something, and he starts spending money like crazy. So he builds a guest house, he builds a stone tower, he completely refurbishes the church. And that's one part of the mystery, is where do you get the money? And lots of people have views on that, and there's lots of ideas. But on top of that is what he did with the money, because he decorated his church, and it's still there today, and it's kind of an unsolved mystery. Because if you go there, his church is full of things you wouldn't really expect in a church. He's got a life-size statue of a demon in the doorway. He's got an inscription above the door that says, "This place is terrible," written in stone. He's got lots of kind of Rosicrucian crosses and hints of secret societies and references to alchemy and Freemasonry. And so it's no longer really a Catholic church, it's become something else. And his church is in a part of the world that has a tradition for heresy. The Cathars, an esoteric Christian sect, were there in the Middle Ages, and they believed that Jesus and Mary were married. And this idea comes down through the mystery at Rennes. And it kind of resurfaces in the 1950s briefly, but really came out in the early 1980s. A book came out called Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which was about a secret society called the Priory of Sion. And they used the Rennes-le-Château mystery as a kind of vehicle to release information. and they released a lot of alternative ideas. They released many new things about Christianity and many new ideas about what Christ was like. And that was kind of the beginning. So I was off down that road for years, but then I ended up as a manager here at Watkins Books. Watkins is in Cecil Court, and I lived just down the end for 3 years. And while I was here, I met Freemasons and I met Templars, and I met someone from the Priory of Sion, and I got access to lots of information and lots of interesting people. But all the time I was writing, and I still had this thing about writing. But while I was here, I took this little badge to the British Museum, because I was spending a lot of time there, and got them to identify it. And they said it's about 100 years old, and it came from a magazine called The Scribe for writers, and it was given to writers. And the magazine was based here in Cecil Court. So I find myself coming back to Watkins Books all the time. I finished the book, and I get an agent, and she gets me a publisher, and I go meet this publisher, Michael, and I say to him, he says, "Oh, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I worked at Watkins Bookshop as a manager, and then I left and I went into publishing." "What did you do?" And he said, "I worked at Watkins Bookshop as a manager, and then I left and went into publishing." And he bought, in the 1980s, the Watkins imprint, the publishing house that was part of this shop. And this book has come out on the Watkins imprint without any control of me. So I really have come full circle, because my writing career kind of begins and ends with this badge coming from Cecil Court, and everything has since sent me here. And even the book has come out based on Watkins. So that's kind of my journey and how the book got started. What then happened, which we come to the second badge, was while I was here, I did meet someone from the Priory of Sion. I discovered this through someone else. They were a collector of really rare alchemical manuscripts and really old documents. They had lots of esoteric interest, but I didn't really deal with them much. I only spoke to them on the phone a few times. I never got to meet them. But I knew who they were. And then sometime after that, the Da Vinci Code came out, and everything went berserk. All this stuff on the bloodline, all the stuff I'd been researching for 20 years nearly, was suddenly all over the press again. It was big news. Was Jesus married? Did the Priory of Sion exist? Because they had a secret society in the Da Vinci Code. And all the documentaries came out and said, "No, never heard of them. They're not I was thinking, well, you can meet them in Paris. You can find them. They're real. You know, there's certainly people around today that are in this organisation." I got approached by a friend of mine, Bruce Burgess, who can't be here. He's in Italy, unfortunately, working, to do a documentary for an LA film company with quite a good budget, as a lead researcher, to say, what is all this stuff, this bloodline, what's this mystery in France about, let's try and get to the bottom of it. He didn't know that I knew the secret society, he just knew that I'd done a lot of research on it. So I then, I took part in this documentary, and once I was happy with the way it was going, and that these people were honest, they weren't doing something exploitative or just dismissive, they were really trying to find out the truth, I contacted the Priory of Sion, via a contact here. I might actually be around here somewhere. And this person, Nicholas Hayward, got back to me. My understanding of the REM mystery is very close to Priory of Sion's understanding, as far as I can tell. So for the first time in about nearly 30 years, they opened up and started talking. And they gave us lots of information for the documentary. They did an interview. But then they kept giving me information, and I ended up with, well, a wealth of information, over 300 emails, original pieces of artwork, designs, documents, access to documents. I got a contact in the Vatican, I got a contact in the Paris National Bibliothèque. We got access to Saint-Sulpice Library in Paris, which is impossible to get into. So suddenly I have amassed, on top of my own research, a wealth of inside information, and it's really good. It was really good information. Somebody who'd been researching for a long time. Suddenly, I had wonderful stuff. I'll give you an idea of some of the stuff that they're about. They have a very different view of Christianity, which is what they're working on disseminating into the public domain. They believe that Jesus was married, and there's some evidence for that in the Bible. He's called a rabbi at one point. He couldn't be a rabbi unless you were married. They don't believe he died on the cross. And again, in the Bible, he's wandering around afterwards. Doubting Thomas touches his